On this 4-part special of the Low Carb Cook, we're tackling two massively popular dishes for us Brits, Spaghetti Bolognese and that classic lasagna, pasta and all. So here in part 1, we're making the perfect Bolognese sauce. Italians, students and man cooking at home for a cheap date, it's your favourite and mine, Bolognese. High in protein and good fats and adjusted to be low in carbs, here in part 1 is my take on this absolute classic, and one you can eat with or without my keto pasta, which we'll tackle in the second video in this series. In we go then. So for this, I have 2 kilos of 20% fat minced beef. Now that's ideal for keto. Not only is it lower in price, it's also helping your daily macros with that high fat content. We're only going to use 1 red pepper, 1 green pepper, 1 yellow pepper, 1 red onion, 1 courgette, an unusual ingredient, but I like to put that in for a bit of extra fibre and bulk things out. 2 cartons of passata, 250 grams of close cut mushrooms, a good teaspoon or 2 of mixed Italian herbs, a large teaspoon of easy garlic. Then we have some ground black pepper, a teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt, 40 grams of meat gravy, you'll understand where that's coming in later, and finally 3 OXO cubes. Now I'm a really big fan of the batch cook where I'll make double the amount I want and freeze a portion for later. It's a real time and cost saver, so today with 2 dishes to make in this series, I'm making double the amount, but you can just half the recipe if you're planning to make just 1 meal. So to start with, we're going to turn our hob on, and we want that to its highest setting. And straight away, put all your nice minced beef in there to brown off. I just get mine from the supermarket. You can get yours from the butcher. Just grab a stirrer. You're going to want to keep this moving so it doesn't burn on the bottom. But with that in, put the lid on. That's going to build up a bit of steam and that heat's going to help to cook that through. So I'm just going to clear some bits out of the way. And we'll come back to those later on. You want a nice, clean, fresh chopping board and a very sharp knife. And the first thing we're going to do is cut up our peppers. Now I always use the caps of the peppers as well. I don't see the point in throwing those away. They're perfectly good. Green peppers are around 2.9 grams of carbohydrates, that's net carbs per 100 grams. So these are the lowest in the peppers family. It's going to be a bit of a cook along today. You can always speed through the video if you don't want to watch me chop all this veg up, but we've got meat to brown, so it's all good. So I just start by slicing these into strips. Now, because I'm making a lasagna with this today as well, I don't want really big pieces in there. So I'm going to be chopping all this up quite fine. If you're making just a bolognese for a spaghetti bolognese, you can always just leave this a bit more chunky if you want to. I know a professional chef will have had this already, all 3 peppers done. But that's the thing, the low carb cook doesn't claim to be a professional cook. Just a guy in my kitchen doing my little show. Move that across. Start with the red. Pull out the seeds. Same again. Slice into strips. You can hear my meat in the pan sizzling away really nicely there now. Okay, that's our red pepper. Finally our yellow. Don't worry if a few seeds go in, they're not going to hurt you either, they're fine. Lose the stalk. Start with the cap this time. So yellows are around 5 grams of net carbs per 100 grams, and red peppers are around 7.9 grams of net carbs per 100 grams, making them the highest. But we're only using 3 peppers for this entire double batch, so that's absolutely fine as well. Peppers are one of the things you can actually eat quite frequently, and any recipe that's keto that has veg in, it's just anything to get some fiber through you. You know, if you've been on keto for a while, you know that it's such a high protein diet, fiber can be an issue. So I love to sneak extra veg into things when I can, just to get that bit of additional fiber. Which brings me on to my next ingredient, that slightly unusual courgette. Courgettes are really low in carbs. There's something like 2.5 grams of carbs per 100 grams. They're going to bulk this recipe out, make it go a bit further, but by bulking out each portion with a lower carb ingredient, you're lowering the carbohydrates in the overall meal. So I start by slicing this in half, and then slicing each half in half again, and then just thinly slicing off pieces. And by the time this is cooked and softened, it's almost going to disappear into this bolognese. There we go. Okay, that's our courgette. Let's just take a moment to check on the meat. We don't want that to burn. Whew. There we go. You know, you can see this is browning. There's still some red here, but this is browning nicely. If we, oh yeah, frying on the bottom, that's okay. I like that. I think when it fries a little bit on the bottom, that gives you a bit more flavour in that meat, so that's okay with me. Give it a good stir and break up any pieces. You don't want any big lumps in there, especially if you're making lasagna. Oh, I think this is a great time to throw in our salt and our pepper. That's going to get that seasoning really deep into that meat right from the beginning of the cook there. There. Cover that again. Let that steam and heat build up, and that's going to help cook that meat through. And we will move on to our onion. Now, a tip for chopping onions, always cut the base off first. This is where all the enzymes come from that sting your eyes. So if you cut that off first, point it away from you, cut that off first, and then get rid of it. Get it out of the way, because once you cut it, they're all spurting out of there and going up into the air and getting into your eyes. So then my tip, slice that in half again. You'll notice I haven't even taken the peel off yet. But once you've cut it like this, it is so much easier just to get rid of that. There we go. Now, I always like to use red onion in my cooking when I can. It's certainly higher in certain vitamins and nutrients that I prefer. I then chop 4 sections down there, and then holding it tight, slice, slice. And that's helping you to cut that into really small pieces without too much aggravation. Same with the other half. Try and keep that root end pointed away from you as well, just because it's still releasing that enzyme. There we go, no stingy eyes. Whenever I chop these up, I absolutely love the colour that you get across the board. This real sort of rainbow look. And then finally, onto our mushrooms. And my mother was always a real stickler for peeling mushrooms and taking away the stalk. I never bother, I leave it all in. It's going to be well cooked and heated. Anything on that outer cover won't be a problem. Mushrooms, one of the lowest things for carbs, something around 2 grams per 100 grams, I think. So you can eat these a lot. Now, just going to turn my meat down just a little bit. It's really boiling away in there. Just going to turn that down to 7. Okay, so that's all of our veg cut and prepared. The next thing to do, give your meat a stir again. And there you go. You can see from this, that fat's come out of the meat. That's looking really great. It's all browned through now, so that is our meat well cooked. Now most people will be pouring off that fat, but that's great for us. We want to keep that in there. So with that all ready, now we are going to just plonk all of our veg into the meat, into our bowl. And what's going to happen with the heat from the meat and with the lid on and it's steaming, all of these vegetables are going to sweat down and a lot of moisture will come out of them. That moisture is then great. It's full of flavour for the cook for later on. You won't need to add any additional water to this recipe. Keeping all that flavour locked in. There we go. And I'm just going to give that a quick stir around, get some of that meat mixed in with the veg. There we go. Cover that up again. I'm going to turn it down a little more. I don't want to overheat it at this point. So I'm turning that down to 5, halfway through on my hob. And now we're just going to leave that for about 20 to 25 minutes to sweat down all of those vegetables. And while we're doing that, I'm going to have a quick clear up. Welcome back. Now, all of that veg has sweated down beautifully. We take a look in there, give it a quick stir through. That's looking great. So now it's time to add our passata and our stock cubes. Now, I like to use passata simply because it's the lowest carb tomato sauce I've been able to find anywhere. If you use some of the jar sauces that come ready-made from the supermarket, they're just so high in sugar. Even if they say no added salt or sugar, this is still lower. So we're going to add in our own herbs and garlic anyway to bring back that classic Italian flavour. So let's cut those open and pop those in. Then they can get on with infusing that lovely tomato flavour into our dish. Give them a shake. There we go. Get them both in here. And again, even for the amount of carbs in one of these packs, it's a batch bake. This is a very large amount we're cooking here. So you're really spreading those carbs out. If I take a look at the pack, I can tell you this is 2.9 grams of carbohydrates per 100 grams, of which fibre is 1.8 grams. It's really not as bad as you think. Next, throw in our mixed Italian herbs. And finally, we're going to add our lazy garlic back in. I always figure, again, convenience. Why sit there chopping up your own garlic when you can just buy it in a jar that will last for ages in the fridge? And it really helps in recipes like this. Give all that a stir in. And then the OXO Cubes. Now, if you're a Brit like me, OXO Cubes are absolutely part of the culture. And I want to share with you my favourite little internet trick that I learned a few years ago. You've been crumbling these things all wrong. The trick is to crumble them while they're still in the foil. Just crush those cubes. And there you've got a fine powder already. And just hold it over, peel that open, sprinkle that in. How easy is that? I love that one. One more. We want 2 stock cubes in there to give it that really rich beef flavour. I really love the beef flavour of these as well. Tear it open. There we go. Perfect. Give that a stir through. And again, we're just going to leave this to simmer for 20 to 25 minutes. All that veg is going to cook down even further, sweat out more of that moisture, which is going to make this a nice wet consistency. There. Now, while we leave that to simmer for another 20 to 25 minutes, let's take a look at those all-important macros. So the last thing I'm going to add into this is really optional. My secret ingredient to make this absolutely perfect is a sprinkle of something whose name just keeps it real, and that is meat gravy. Yes, the marketing department really agonized over naming this product, but it does what it says on the tin. Now, I'm a real fan of gravy, and while many gravy powders and granules are ridiculously high in carbs, this is one of the lowest I've been able to find at around 50 grams of carbs per 100 grams of granules. But we're only adding 40 grams of this to this entire batch cook. So that means 20 grams of total carbs from these granules. Now that equates to 10 grams per half the batch. So assuming one batch will be at least 4 portions, we're adding just 2.5 grams of net carbs per portion in adding these granules. These are going to thicken this sauce up and add another layer of beef flavour, which I really like. But you can leave them out and just thicken this with some real arrowroot powder if you prefer. Now I'm going to turn my heat down a little bit now to around 3 on my hob, and then tip those in, sprinkle them over the top, and give them a good stir through and let them start working. And then it's not long before you can see this really starts to thicken up, take on that lovely gravy flavouring and colour, and become a much thicker beefy sauce that I prefer in my cooks. Now the longer you can leave that to simmer, 25-30 minutes, the softer and more tender that meat's going to become and the better that's going to taste. So just leave it aside as long as you want to. You can turn it down to a really low heat on the hob, like just 1 or 2, and that'll stay hot for a really long time. And that's going to help us if you're going to cook your lasagna. There, 20 minutes on, and that's absolutely ready. The sauce has really thickened up and is looking amazing. So that is our bolognese sauce ready and made. Now, personally, I'm happy to eat this by itself, but if you just can't live without the spaghetti, join us in part 2 and we'll be showing you how to make a fantastic, authentic pasta substitute that's perfect for lasagna, tagliatelle, or just good old spag bol. We'll put a link in the description to parts 2, 3 and 4, but please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the Low Carb Cook for more delicious everyday low carb and keto recipes. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Hey, thanks for watching The Low Carb Cook. If you enjoyed this episode, why not watch one of our playlists or this recommended video? Click on the logo below to subscribe. Join us on any of our social pages, or if you'd like to show a bit more love, you can support the channel on buymeacoffee.com using the link below. For even more great stuff, check out the website, thelowcarbcook.com.